So point of order, that's all.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And I'm fine with me going on. I'm just, we can sit here and discuss this for a half hour, so.
If I may, there is a lot that Kelly said that's not included in here with regard to working with customers, and that the point that it is to address chronic issues. We could add, it is a policy that we can add a preface into that gives the warmer customer service tone of this is not meant to punish ratepayers, it is meant to deal with a chronic issue and save other ratepayers the money that it costs to deal with these problems.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And my final point, honestly, was that I understand why you want this in place, but it's for a very small minority, very small number of people in the community, whereas this is applying to everyone. So it's like you're putting this out there for everyone, but it's really meant to pin those people who are chronic, either late or no payers or bad check people. So something that would be, for any issues, while this is policy, please contact the general manager for any situation that you feel may be applicable to what you've read above, or something of that nature, just so it's not so heavy-handed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, we can review the preface and try to make it a little bit more clear on that it's not meant to penalize everybody, but unfortunately all the policies do apply universally.
I understand.
So we'll take a look at it. Was there any other comments? Did you have?
No. But if somebody calls and says check in, they could just ask you to hold it until it's good. It'd save you a lot of trouble and them a lot of trouble too. I mean, if they knew.
Well, I mean, if you write me a check knowing that it's no good, then you're probably not going to call later and say that it's not going to be any good. Generally what has happened before is somebody will have written us a check and then they call the same day, next day, whatever, if they just drop it in a box maybe, they call the same day and say, look, I didn't get paid, it's not going to be any good, and if we can do something about it, we will. We generally don't hold checks. It's just a liability, but if something's happened, then we will allow them time to come make another form of payment, or they can come collect their check, and then if they don't pay on time, then they don't pay on time.
Right, but if they call and say, hey, the check's no good, you're not gonna try to deposit it, are you?
It depends on whether it's already been deposited.
Well, yeah, I understand that.
Because we don't have the same process that we did previously. Now we have, we scan checks and they go to the bank every day. So if you call the same day, then there's a chance that it hasn't gone in yet. Mm-hmm. If you call the next day, it's already gone in.
Right, okay.
Okay, well, I have nothing further.
So would we like to continue this to November then?
We can take public comment.
Yeah.
Yes, public comment?
Yeah, you have public comment on this item?
No.
Okay. I would ask that you come up with a preface and bring it back in November, please. If everyone else is agreeable to that.
I agree.
I don't agree.
I have a motion on the floor to bring it back and add a preface for review by Director Sangster, second by Director Davis. We'll have a vote. Director Davis?
Yes.
Director Smiley?
No.
Director Sangster?
Yes.
So there's only three of you here, but we don't need a formal motion and vote to continue an agenda item.
Okay.
Just a consensus of the present board because it's not a formal action.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had already written continued to November.
Item 3, discuss preparing a policy for the city board president to have access to building keys for district facilities.
So this item is was requested by Director Green and Director Davis to have access for city board president to have access to building keys for district facilities. We've listed out a number of concerns, namely for confidentiality, operational safety, accessibility. potential current key, or outlining our current key protocols and what common practices. It's not common for the board to have keys to everything. I mean, if that's the direction of this board, then that's the direction of the board. But there is a few risks involved in confidentiality, having any unauthorized person having individual access to confidential files, files, personnel records, things like that. The fire department has personnel files, HIPAA records, other legal forms or documents that may be available to confidential personnel. Operational safety, we have water, wastewater, and fire facilities. These are not meant for general public. They're not meant for untrained personnel. If untrained personnel access them, there could be a risk to critical infrastructure, or there could be a threat to other threat to public safety or the environment, depending on what they're accessing. Again, not saying that anybody on this board would necessarily do this, but this is again a policy for the board for going into the future. We have to have licensed personnel operate water and wastewater facilities, and other access is restricted. So that access would be restricted to board members as well. And then general accessibility. Public areas are ADA accessible. Like for example, the district office is ADA accessible. Not all of our sites are ADA accessible. So there may be an ADA compliance issue if non-operational personnel are allowed to access sites that are not accessible. And then our current protocol, currently board members don't have access to facilities or secure areas without an escort. General office staff are limited access to assigned workstations. Water wastewater operators access to all facilities which they operate. The general manager has access to all the district facilities and confidential files, except patient files, which are under the purview of the fire chief. And general fire staff have access to the fire department facilities. So even within our district, our access is limited to what you're authorized to be at. And then again, common practice that I have found anyway is that boards do not have generally keys to district facilities or whatever facilities that they oversee. So the board should discuss this and decide what they want to pursue this, if they don't want to pursue it, to what degree they want to pursue it, and so we can prepare a policy if that is the direction.
So in regards to confidentiality with sensitive information, employee files, whatever, are those not currently locked up?
They are.
Okay.
So for confidential personnel files and confidential legal files, I maintain those files.
And they're under locked.
And they are locked.
Right, so if any one of those board members had a key to the facilities, we wouldn't have keys to the sensitive files.
Well, that would depend on what the level of access is that the board wants to have. So if the board wants to have the board president have access to everything, then they would theoretically have access to those files too.
Well, so I don't want to speak for Director Green because he's not here, okay? So the way I interpreted his request was access to the facilities, not access to confidential files. Again, it's not for us to be accessing those. And if they're already locked up, and having a key, and the other comment is that it wasn't necessarily giving the board president a key. It could be accessed by board members. It could be in a lockbox, and it's really intended for use in an emergent situation. So it isn't like that Director, and again, I'm interpreting what he had said, but I don't think he intends that I or the board members just have random access to just go into the facilities at any time just to wander around and check things out. That's not how I took his request. So I don't think there's any risk of confidentialities. Again, I wouldn't want to accept that risk, and the other board members wouldn't, nor would legal counsel advise that we accept those risks to do confidential files when it's not what we should be doing. Anyway, so I think that if that helps clarify the request, it's not, I don't think that was what he asked for.
So maybe then I misunderstood, because when we were discussing it, I thought that he specifically asked for the board president to have it.
So my interpretation, what he said was access to the different facilities should they be necessary. And again, that's sort of like an emergent situation.
So if that's the direction, then that is a better situation. However, if for some reason I fall off the face of the earth and take my keys with me, then Tamara has keys and can get to all the sites that I can get to. She can't get into confidential files, so there's not that. But we also have 2 operators that can get to all the well sites. We have a contractor that can get to all the well sites. And we have multiple firefighters that can get to those sites. So whereas things may have been more compartmentalized in the past, we have more people that are available to, if there's emergency and somebody needs to go to a well, quite honestly, nobody on this board is going to know what to do to get there unless somebody's on the phone with them saying, hey, you gotta go do this. But we have other people for that.
Understood.
So, I mean, if it's simply that we have keys in a lockbox and somebody can say, Director Sangster, this is the key, this is the code for the lockbox, you need to go get the keys and go do whatever it is, then that's a much better situation. Having directors have access to sites that maybe help, or, if the intention isn't to have any access to confidential files, then we'll just ignore that. But if it's that they can go get a key and go into the wells, or go into the treatment plant, or go into the offices or something, then that's a bigger problem.
I don't think that was the request, and I don't think the request is, so Joe Schmo can go into the treatment plant and what's this switch do? I don't think that's what the intention is. The intention was to have access, again, in the event of emergent circumstances. I mean, if there's a cataclysmic earthquake, all the district personnel are under rubble, and perhaps the board president is not, well, people can still access, the apparatus or the building or whatever that needed to be accessed. I think that's really the intent of what the request is. So if there were keys to the variety of facilities that could be accessed through a lockbox, I think that's really kind of what the intention was.
Okay.
Is that the way you understood the request?
Well, I understood he wanted the general manager to have access, and I have 3 buildings that it's restricted access to the keys. And when you have restricted access, then somebody goes, well, I can copy you a key, or I can get you in there. And then we find out that person's gone there with 2 other people. In one case, 12 other people went into the building with the 1 key. And it ended up being a problem. We had to call the sheriff and admonish the member that was in there. I don't think it's a good idea. The lockbox in an emergency, and you can change the code to it after it's been used one time, I would have no problem with that in case there's an emergency. But generally overall, I don't think the board ought to have free access to those offices when nobody's around, unless they've got a good reason to be there. A very good reason to be there.
Clearly, a cataclysmic event would be a good reason if that was a reason.
Meteor,
Right.
But we might not have gone in that situation, so.
It just missed President Sangster only.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. The apocalypse, awesome. Director Davis,
I personally feel that the president of the board should have access to a key, whether it's put in a lockbox with a code or whatever. But in the case of a catastrophe, I'm not wishing any bad luck, but let's face it, I mean, it could happen, So I don't see, and like I said, you're saying, well, you let contractors in back there, are they all certified to run the treatment plant? And then those people that bring in the, wagons or trucks full of wet stuff, and the ones that bring in, they just come in and dump it. Are they certified to run anything if anything happens?
So in the instance of the contractors that we're employing are trained and licensed to operate the facilities they have access to. Like in the case of the contractors, they don't have access to our main office. There's no reason for them to have access to that, so that limits the liability that one of them could act on their own on a weekend or something and do something in our office. In reference to the trucks that come in, we know that they're going there and we know when they're leaving and what they're doing there. So that's not the same type of issue. The issue that I'm concerned about is that having somebody that we don't know is there. Probably the biggest safety hazard, in my opinion, is a person not trained or not aware of the situation at the treatment plant, going out there maybe at dusk, maybe at dark, and walking into the pond and dying. I know you think that I'm making stuff up, that we've had people go there at all times of the day. When I first started here, people just went in and out of there like they own the place. So if you have somebody, especially at a facility that has chemicals or a treatment plant, if you go there by yourself and nobody knows that you're supposed to be there, and now all of a sudden it's 4 days later and nobody knows where you went, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, but that's, like I said, as long as you have that fence around there, I mean.
But that's not the problem. The problem is you guys are asking for keys to go into these facilities.
Well, that doesn't mean we're gonna go in there and jump in one of the ponds and drown.
You missed the point.
Maybe not you, but there might be, future board members. I mean, it's all about the unpredictable situations and with just enough liability. But a lockbox with a code would resolve that,
Yeah.
where you're only
It'd
getting
solve
in an
the problem.
emergency circumstance. And so we just need to be able to craft a policy, like a written policy that says in what circumstance and how it's going to be carried out and who has access, so that it's clear.
Yeah, I think that's the spirit of what the intent was, so I would be in favor of working on something to that effect.
So you want to bring it back?
They have
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with bringing it back, but also with the restriction that if somebody has a key, a manager or somebody that's accessing that they do not bring unauthorized personnel with them into the building or the office or anywhere in the district
For sure.
without prior notice.
Yeah. Or again, unless it's a meteor strike and there's people that are helping you, then I guess that would be okay.
I would suggest a global access to facilities policy in general
Yeah.
that defines not just the person who has access to this lockbox, but anybody that has facilities keys.
I'm okay
And
with that.
the safety concerns related to that and not allowing people who are
Agreed.
not supposed to be there. So it would be, I think, on a larger scale, something that probably the district's been missing for a while anyway.
Okay. Do you need more direction from us for that?
So just a clarification for myself.
Yep.
So you, well, the three of you anyway, it would be acceptable to have the keys in a lockbox at one of the facilities that could be accessed. How would you like to get the access to the lockbox? Would you have the code for the lockbox, or would you have to get a hold of somebody to get the code?
Well, that defeats the purpose of not having a code. I mean,
Yeah.
again, if you're, so here's the thing. I think whoever is going to be authorized should have that code. And again, that person would be restricted based on the use policy that's going to be written to limit the use to whatever circumstances we're deciding as a board are adequate to use that code to get in the box to get the keys. And the keys would also have to be labeled so that you know what the hell they're for. It's not just like a box of
Takes away the whole
keys.
fun of figuring it out.
Right. Yeah, so.
In an emergency.
In an emergency.
In emergency,
Okay.
right. Yeah, use the blue key. I'm just saying, so I think that having the code would be the point of it, but again, the policy needs to outline the times when it can and should be used and the restrictions when it shouldn't.
Right. And
Does that
then
seem fair to everybody?
Sure.
the final question, sorry, go ahead.
Well, like I said, that, a box with a combination on it where the keys are at. And, only on the board, the president of the board, you know, has access to that. But, yeah, he should have, board member, especially the president, should be able to get anywhere on this place that needs to be if there's an emergency. You know,
So that was my question, is just for the board president to have the combination.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were asking me.
I was asking all of you, but.
Yeah, it should be, yes.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item? We do not. Okay. We'll move on to item 4. Authorize the general manager to execute a not to exceed time and material contract with Water System Consulting for program management support through permitting and construction phases of the expansion and upgrade of the Machado wastewater treatment facility by resolution 2025-41.
So this is authorized general manager to execute the time and material contract with WSC, our district engineer, for, again, program management services. This is to provide services that are outside of our general engineering contract with WSC in relation to the wastewater treatment plant. The proposed contract would be for $55,507.10. On a time and material basis. You guys approved a contract with Wallace Group for engineering services through the end of construction. And this is essentially the counterpart to that. As our district engineer, the district engineer has to coordinate with Wallace Group and the contractor, making sure that everything is compliant with our grant and with the plans and specs that are provided. Again, this is just an extension of what they were already providing and would continue to provide through permitting or contract.
So clarify for me, this is an initial contract with Water System Consulting?
This is an extension of the work that they were already doing.
Okay,
another $54,000.
55.
Or 55.
So, in the initial contract, what was the scope?
The original scope was to provide plan review for 30, 60, and 90 day, or 90% plan design, which we ended up spending a lot more time in those phases of planning than anticipated, which was not really the fault of WSC. And then they've been doing a 100% design review on top of that.
Okay, and what was the amount of the previous contract?
I would have to look at. Hold on, it's at the bottom. No, it's not. I apologize, I didn't put that in there.
Do you know what year it was?
Like 22, maybe.
Okay, even ballpark, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000?
No, I think it was probably about the same amount, but
I have one, resolution 2022-04. Is that the contract of Water System Consulting for engineering and technical support for preparing submittal and negotiation terms for relations to the required notice of intent to discharge?
no, that's a different one.
That's the nice. Just pulling on my WSC.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought I put that in there, but it looks like I did not.
Okay,
We can bring it back with that if you like. So
We
you have
got
a full
Prop
picture.
1, Grant 2, that's different.
so this scope is just covering the final 10% of the engineering?
This is covering the re-review of the 100% from Wallace Group, but it's also providing service through through bidding, which would be on top of the original plan review. So coordination with Closina, Wallace Group, and whoever is bidding on this project. And the additional coordination with the county permitting and whatever other contract documents may be necessary through our engineering staff.
So Water System Consulting is going to run all of the formal bidding process with each phase or portion of the project?
So generally they provide support in preparing the engineering documents and the RFP documents for all of our contracts, for all of our RFPs, or most of them, I guess. So they'd be providing support for that and providing support through the RFI process and the actual bid and award process.
Okay.
For each thing that we're putting out to bid related to the treatment plant.
Okay.
So some of this is being incurred because we're separating out some of the tasks that would have been as the big picture, like the switchgear installation that has to be done in advance for timing purposes. So that's a little bit more work on their side, and there's a whole other RFP on their side. So they'll be doing each one of those that comes up and culminating all of those for our grant recording.
And so they're the ones preparing the documents. I'm assuming that they will also ensure that we're compliant with public contract code and all of that. So if there's any issue after the fact, it doesn't fall on us. They're the ones that have to deal with it, or no?
So they prepare them, I review them, Christina reviews them, or somebody in her office reviews them. So they've been reviewed 3 times, but yes, generally WSC would be responsible for making sure that the verbiage that's required for public contracting code and for compliance with all of the Made in America requirements that have come across are all located and addressed in any of those RFPs, any of those contracts.
Their contract requires them to keep errors and emissions insurance for that purpose as well.
Okay. Are we monitored or obligated to report anything to CPDC for public works projects or public capital projects, things like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We're not right now, so if we are, we probably should do that. But not that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of any of your projects that require that.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions.
I'm good.
I've got because like I said, on this treatment plant, we're concerned about the treatment plant. But is that 9,200 square foot building still planned to go down there?
So, though the plans have that building on them, the direction is not to include that in the construction bidding.
Yeah, because you said it would cost $1,000 a foot. That's 9.2 million
Yep.
right there. So that could save a lot of money. You know, I
So
mean,
there will have to be some sort of an office there at some point. But the direction that I've given to our engineers and Walls Group is that we need to separate that so that it can be taken care of at a later time.
okay. Does you came up, I think, last month or month before that purple pipe that you figure on running over to the Estrella River? Is that included?
That's a different project.
Okay. Because I'm just concerned about the treatment plant.
This is only for the treatment plant.
Yeah,
It's not for the recycled water line that could potentially go down River Road is a separate project. Anything outside of this treatment plant is a separate project.
yeah, right.
So
So,
the work that they're proposing to do here is solely for the development of the treatment plant.
okay, but when we go for the grant, I don't know where grant money's gonna come from.
Well, which grant are you talking about?
Well, the grant for the treatment plant,
So that's state funded.
yeah.
So that's money that they already have. And they already have in a pool for these projects.
Is that the 54 million that you were talking about,
The maximum that we could get.
that meeting that you went to in July, I think?
Yeah, I think we're getting off track, but
No,
the
this has to do-
54, well, that doesn't necessarily have to do with this contract that we're
Yeah.
doing, but there is our maximum of 54 million that we could get for wastewater projects.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, because I thought I understood that we were gonna try to find a different place to put your office and not down in the middle of the treatment plant.
Well, that is
I know we
a
discussed it.
discussion that we had. That's
Yeah.
not, again, part of this
Okay.
contract, but that is a discussion that will be coming back to the board because we have to make a decision on
All
what
right.
we're gonna do.
Okay, that's it. I'm trying to save $9.2 million. Or not, yeah.
You left that wallet at home, huh?
Yeah. No, 9,200 times 1,000 is 9.2
You're
million.
right. Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah,
Okay, that it?
yeah.
Okay, any public comment on this item? No? All right. Looking back to the board, anyone have a motion?
Make a motion that we adopt.
We have a second.
No second.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Director Davis?
No,
Director Smiley?
Yes.
Director Sangster?
Yes.
So fails 2-1.
212.
Do you want to kill it? Do you want to bring it back?
I said bring it back.
I would agree, bring it back.
Okay.
You agree?
No, I don't.
Bill, so,
It fails and we only need 2 directors to request to bring it back on the agenda,
hang
so.
on.
It's okay, you guys know it.
You said yes, and I said yes.
And he said no.
You said no, so we needed a
You
unanimous.
need a quorum.
Need a quorum,
Because
okay.
there's,
I
yeah,
see. Okay.
two directors have limited power.
Okay, so, I would say if you bring it back. Right.
Get that other
Yeah.
information.
So, what I would like though is if you could give me the original contract amount with that, please?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, that concludes our action items. We're now at board comment. Have any board comment?
None for me.
Director Davis, board comment? Nothing?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I have nothing. We're adjourned.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
Even though we
Whoop.
continued the
Oh.
closed session, we still
Yes.
take public
Public
comment on
comment,
it
yes,
because
you're
it was
right.
agendized.
Is there any public comment on the closed session items which have been moved to November?